Hello, I'm David Harper. On July 29th, your old age security payment changes. For some of you, it goes up. For some of you, it goes down. And for a few of you, it could stop completely. Nobody is going to call you and explain which one applies to you. There are actually 3 separate things happening on the exact same day, and almost nobody bundles them together so you can see the whole picture at once. The first is your regular quarterly increase. That's the easy one, the one that sounds like good news. The second is the guaranteed income supplement recalculation, and this is the one that can quietly cut your payment if you weren't paying attention to your tax return. And the third is the clawback threshold, the line that decides whether the government takes some of your OAS back, and that line moves on the same day too. I'm going to walk you through all 3 in plain English so you know exactly what to expect in your account and exactly what to check before the date arrives, not after. Stay with me, because the part that catches people off guard isn't the increase, it's the other 2. Before we go further, subscribe to this channel, and here's exactly why it matters for this topic specifically. These payment dates and thresholds shift every few months, sometimes every few weeks. If you're subscribed, you find out before the next change lands in your account. If you're not, you find out when your deposit looks wrong and you're left wondering why. Hit subscribe and tap the bell. Let's get into it. Here's the part most people never get explained to them. OAS, GIS, and the clawback don't move on the same schedule. They just happen to land on the same date in July, which makes it look like one event when it's actually 3 separate calculations stacking on top of each other. Old age security is reviewed every 3 months in January, April, July, and October based on inflation. So July is just one of its 4 regular check-ins during the year. The guaranteed income supplement is different. It only recalculates once a year, every July, and it's not based on inflation. It's based entirely on the tax return you just filed for the previous year. And the clawback threshold, the income line that decides if any of your OAS gets taken back, that also resets every July using your income from the year before. So picture 3 rivers all flowing into the same lake on the same day. The inflation increase is flowing in. Your new GIS number, based on last year's taxes, is flowing in. And the new clawback line, also based on last year's taxes, is flowing in. Whatever lands in your account on July 29th is the result of all 3 at once. That's why 2 seniors with the exact same OAS pension can see 2 completely different changes to their deposit on the exact same day. It isn't a mistake, it's math, and the math is personal to your own tax return. And this is exactly why I want you watching this before July 29th instead of after. Once the deposit lands, all you can do is react. Before it lands, you can actually check your own numbers and know what's coming. Let me make this real with a made-up example, because the math lands better with a face attached to it. Let's call him Frank. Frank is 68. He gets OAS and a modest GIS top-up. Last year, he picked up a few months of part-time work to help cover a renovation, so his income for that year was higher than usual. He filed his taxes on time, like always, so he assumed everything would just continue the way it had been. But on July 29th, Frank's GIS portion drops because Service Canada recalculated it using that higher income year. At the very same time, his base OAS ticked up slightly from the inflation increase. The 2 changes partly cancel out, and Frank's total deposit comes in noticeably lower than he expected. Not because anything went wrong, because that's exactly how the system is designed to work. If Frank had known this was coming, he could have planned around it instead of being surprised by it. That's the whole point of this video. Now let me give you the other side of Frank's story, because it's just as common. Picture his neighbor Doreen. Doreen retired fully last year, so her income actually dropped compared to the year before. When her July recalculation happens, her GIS doesn't drop like Frank's. It rises because the system is simply reflecting that she has less income coming in now than she did the year before. Same system, same date, completely opposite result. That's the entire reason I'm walking you through the mechanics instead of just giving you one number, because your own outcome depends on your own year. Let's go through each of the 3 changes properly, starting with the simple one. Old age security is adjusted for inflation every quarter, and for the July to September period, the increase is 1.2%. In real numbers, if you're between 65 and 74, your maximum OAS goes from roughly $743 a month to roughly $752 a month. If you're 75 or older, it goes from roughly $817 to roughly $827. That's roughly $9 to $10 more a month at the maximum. It isn't a huge number on its own, but it never decreases, and it compounds every year you're collecting it. Here's something worth knowing. OAS has a built-in floor. Even if inflation ever goes negative for a quarter, your OAS rate is protected from dropping because of that alone. This part requires nothing from you. It happens automatically. Your only job is to know it's coming, so you're not confused when the deposit looks slightly different than the month before. Now here's the one that actually matters, the Guaranteed Income Supplement recalculation. This is the part of your payment that can move the most, and it's the part almost nobody explains clearly. Every July, Service Canada wipes the slate and recalculates your GIS using the income from your most recently filed tax return. Not an estimate, not last quarter, your actual filed return. If your income went down last year, your GIS can increase, sometimes by a meaningful amount. If your income went up, even temporarily, your GIS can drop. The maximum single senior GIS amount for this July is projected around $1,120 a month. But that's the ceiling, not what everyone gets. Your actual number depends entirely on your own income from the year before. And here's the detail that catches people every single year. If you didn't file your taxes on time, Service Canada doesn't have current numbers to recalculate with, and your GIS can be suspended starting in July until you file. This is why filing every single year matters, even at zero income. Even if you earned nothing at all, the system still needs that filed return to know it. Silence looks the same as ineligibility to the computer doing the math. Let me put a real number on this so it isn't abstract. If your reported income drops by around $2,000 compared to the year before, your GIS can rise by several $100s over the year, depending on where you sit on the income scale. That's not pocket change, that's real grocery money. The third change is the one fewer people think applies to them, but it's worth understanding even if you're sure it doesn't. The OAS recovery tax, what most people call the clawback, also resets every July. For this coming period, July 2026 through June 2027, the threshold is based on your 2025 income. If your net income was above roughly $93,400, the government starts clawing back 15 cents of your OAS for every dollar above that line. If your income climbs high enough, the clawback eventually eliminates the entire pension. For most seniors aged 65 to 74, that full elimination point is around $152,000. For those 75 and older, it's a bit higher because of the permanent boost that age group already receives. Most seniors watching this aren't anywhere near that range, and if that's you, this part simply doesn't touch your deposit. But if you had a one-time event last year, you sold an investment, took a larger RRIF withdrawal, had a one-off pension payout, it's worth checking where your 2025 income actually landed. The reason this matters, even for people who are usually nowhere close, is that a single unusual year can quietly push your income over that line without you realizing it until the deposit shows up smaller. Here's what that actually looks like in dollars. If your 2025 income landed $5,000 over the threshold, that's a clawback of roughly $750 over the year. 15 cents on every one of those dollars. Small mistakes in estimating your income can carry a real cost. So here's the full picture for July 29th. Your base OAS goes up by 1.2% automatically for everyone. Your GIS portion, if you receive it, gets fully recalculated based on your 2025 tax return, and it can move up or down. And if your income crossed the threshold last year, the clawback line also resets and may take a larger or smaller bite. For most seniors on a modest fixed income with no GIS, this is simple. You get a small automatic raise and nothing else changes. For seniors receiving GIS, this is the month that actually matters most because last year's income decides this year's payment. And for the small number of higher income seniors, the clawback line is worth a 5-minute check, just to be sure nothing unusual from last year pushed you across it. None of this requires panic. It requires knowing which category you're in before the deposit lands, not after. Let me walk through one more worked example so the math feels concrete instead of abstract. Say a senior was getting $900 in GIS in June on top of their OAS. If their income last year was stable, July simply adds the 1.2% OAS bump and nothing else changes. But if that same senior's income happened to rise by $3,000 last year, their GIS could drop by several $100s over the year, even while their OAS portion is going up at the same time. Two real numbers, moving in opposite directions, landing in the same deposit. Before the action steps, let me clear up a couple of mistakes I see seniors make every single July. The first is assuming a smaller deposit means an error and arguing with the bank instead of calling Service Canada. The bank didn't calculate it, they only deliver it. The second mistake is guessing your income instead of checking your actual filed return. People remember a rough number in their head, but Service Canada uses the exact figure from your assessed return, not your memory of it. So here's exactly what to do, in order, before July 29th arrives. Step 1. Confirm your 2025 tax return has actually been filed and assessed, not just sent. If you used a tax clinic or an accountant, call them and ask directly, has my 2025 return been assessed by the CRA yet? If it hasn't, your July GIS recalculation may be delayed or paused. Step 2. If your income was unusual last year, higher or lower than normal, call Service Canada at 1-800-2779914 and ask them directly, based on my 2025 income, will my GIS or my OAS clawback change in July? Have your social insurance number ready. Step 3. If you haven't filed in a year or more, file now. Call the Canada Revenue Agency at 1-800-959-8281 and ask which years you can still claim because GIS generally only back pays about 11 months, so waiting costs you money that can't be recovered later. Step 4. If you're not sure whether you're anywhere near the clawback threshold, check your 2025 net income against $93,454. If you're well under that, this part doesn't apply to you and you can stop worrying about it. Step 5. Mark July 29th on your calendar, and when your deposit arrives, compare it to June's deposit. If something looks off and you don't understand why, call Service Canada and ask them to walk you through the calculation line by line. You're allowed to ask for that. Write these 5 steps down, because doing them now means July 29th is informative instead of stressful. My income didn't change at all last year. Do I still need to do anything? Mostly no. If your income was stable and your taxes were filed on time as usual, your GIS recalculation should be straightforward, and you'll just see the small inflation increase. The checklist matters most for people whose income moved or who filed late. I don't receive GIS at all, only OAS. Does any of this apply to me? Only the first change does, the automatic 1.2% increase. The GIS recalculation doesn't touch you, and the clawback only applies if your income is well above average. For most OAS-only seniors, July 29th is simply a small automatic raise. What if my deposit is smaller and I think it's a mistake? Don't assume it's wrong before you check. Call Service Canada and ask them to explain the calculation specifically, because a smaller deposit is often correct. It's just the GIS recalculation responding to last year's income, not an error. Can my GIS go up because of this recalculation? Yes, absolutely. And this is the part people overlook because they're only braced for bad news. If your income dropped last year, retirement, reduced hours, a pension ending, your July GIS can increase to reflect that lower income. I'm worried I'll forget to check any of this. What's the one thing to do right now? Confirm your tax return is filed and assessed. That single step protects almost everything else in this video because every one of these 3 changes depends on the CRA having your current return on file. My spouse and I are both seniors with different incomes. Are we each recalculated separately? Yes. Service Canada looks at your household income for the GIS calculation, but the payment itself is issued to each of you individually, so it's worth both of you checking your own assessed return together. I missed last July's recalculation completely and never checked. Is it too late to fix anything? Not necessarily. Call Service Canada and ask them to review your file going back as far as possible, because some adjustments can still be corrected once your current return is properly on file. A quick note, this is general information to help you understand what's changing, not financial or legal advice. Always confirm your specific numbers directly with Service Canada or the CRA before relying on any figure here. If this helped you understand your July deposit before it arrives, subscribe so you catch the next change before it lands, not after. And do one more thing for me. Share this with the one person in your life who's already mentioned their pension feels different lately. A parent, a neighbor, a friend from church who's been quietly confused about their deposit for months. They've probably been wondering about this quietly, without anyone explaining it to them. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.